Hey, what up, guys? So, coming to you this morning with the What's Next on undefeated WBO Welterweight Champion of the world and one of the pound-for-pound top 3 boxers in the world, Terence "Bud" Crawford. I love doing the What's Next on the best fighters in the world because there's so many options. And I'm a huge fan of Terence Crawford. He fought in the main event of an ESPN card. Excuse me, sorry about that. On Saturday, December 14th, when he took on, I don't want to fuck the guy's name up again, so I'm not even going to go there. His nickname's the Mean Machine. That's who he fought, okay? You can go look up his damn name. They should have it. But this guy was an undefeated #1 contender to Crawford. And Crawford, you know, I think he made a mistake trying to go right at the guy. And this guy was a former 2-time Olympian. And he should have got a knockdown on Crawford. Anybody that argues that is bullshitting you because he hit him with a straight overhand right. He kept throwing punches, and Crawford was trying to hold on to him, and Crawford went down. So it wasn't a slip. Crawford got hurt. It was a knockdown. It should have been. They didn't score it. Didn't really matter anyways. Actually, I think that woke Crawford up, and Crawford ended up breaking him down after that and then knocking him out in the 9th round. Impressive performance. You know, some of these guys, you may not know who's Crawford is fighting, but he's fighting, you know, he is fighting top-level fighters that are willing to fight him. So let's take a look at the What's Next. Well, before we ask the question, let's ask the question. What's next for undefeated Terence Crawford, going forward? Well, Bob Arum said prior to the fight that they would be looking at he would really try to make a fight with Shawn Porter of the PBC. I'm not sure how makeable that fight is. I'm hoping it's very makeable, and we'll get into why once we run through the top 10, but I would love to see that fight. Porter is just a beast, comes straight at you. He's not afraid of anybody. He proved that against Errol Spence. I think most people, myself included, thought Porter was going to get his ass whipped in that fight, and he proved everybody wrong. I think Porter could fight with any welterweight in the world, and he can beat almost any welterweight in the world, and he's just a damn good fighter. So I would love to see Crawford test himself against that. Plus, if Crawford were to, it would be a great test considering Porter went against Errol Spence, and Spence barely beat him. Spence didn't beat him by much, by a split decision. A lot of people thought it was going to be an ass whipping. Crawford could really prove to everybody that he's the A side and he's the favorite if he gets Porter in the ring, and he could kick the shit out of Porter where what's his name couldn't. Not saying that would happen. I'm saying if he did that, that's, would really separate him from Errol Spence right now. So I think this is a big time fight that that Crawford and Porter should be considering. All right, but let's go with the top 10 and see who's possible for him. Now, Crawford's currently tied for first. Let's look at the guy he's tied for first with, undefeated Errol Spence Jr. This is the dream fight that everybody wants to see. It's not going to happen next, but so let's take it off the table. I would love to see it, but they're going in opposite directions for now. Spence got into a bad car accident. He's not going to come back till May. Crawford would wait for him, but I think Spence is going to want to take a lesser opponent in his next fight, so I don't see it. Number 3 is Manny Pacquiao. I would love to see this fight. Secretly, maybe it's more a hope. I think Pacquiao could consider him next, Crawford, but I just don't think Pacquiao wants anything to do with it. Bob Arum is pretty much taking that off the table because Pacquiao never wanted to fight him when he was fighting for top rank, so he really doesn't think he'll fight him now. I would love to see it, but I don't think it's going to happen. But maybe Pacquiao saw something in Crawford in that fight with the Mean Machine that would sell him on fighting him. I really hope for that, but I really don't think it's going to happen. Keith Thurman. Thurman's not coming back till the middle of the year. He had an injury again, so he's not going to come back to the middle of the year. He's not going to take a risk in his first fight back against Crawford, so I don't see it. Shawn Porter. If there was a fight against a PBC guy, this would be the guy that would fight him. I think Porter is willing to fight anybody. He's not afraid of anybody, and he might be the guy left hanging out. I think Pacquiao or Spence might be fighting Danny Garcia next, and I don't know. I just don't think what's his name is being considered right now. I don't think Porter's being considered, but I do think there's secretly that Porter could be a good option. They said he was one of 3 options for Pacquiao. I think Pacquiao really wants to make a Spence fight, so I think it's possible that he could face Porter and test himself, and if he beats Porter, then go after Spence. So we just got to wait and see what Pacquiao decides to do, but that would derail what I'm trying to say, a Porter-Crawford fight. But, man, I really hope Porter gets the fight with Crawford next. I would love to see that. Danny Garcia, I don't see him fighting Crawford next. He already turned the fight down. I think he's a hot option for both Pacquiao and, Errol Spence next. I think he could get either one of those guys without having to cross the street, quote unquote, with Crawford, with a fight with Crawford. And he's going to make a lot of money. And Pacquiao's the desired fight anyways. He's fighting in January just to shake off some rust against Ivan Redkach. And then I think he's either going to get a Pacquiao fight in April or he's going to get a Errol Spence fight in May or June. So I think Danny Garcia has pretty much got his, at least his first half of the year sewn up. So I don't see him and Crawford doing it next. Number 7 is your Dennis Ugas. This might be a good fight for him to consider. I think Ugas is really turning into the boogeyman. A lot of people think, I didn't watch the fight, I watched the end of it, but a lot of people think he beat Sean Porter last March and got robbed of winning the world title. So if Porter for some reason were to get selected by Pacquiao for his next fight, I could definitely see Crawford saying, all right, let's fight Ugas then. Why not? I know Ugas is a mandatory to Alexander Bisputin right now for the regular title. He might go after that fight instead. But, man, a Crawford fight would make him a lot of money. And he's one of those fearless guys that ain't afraid to come over. And he's coming off a huge win when he dominated Omar Figueroa Jr. So he might have the balls enough to face Crawford, especially if he gets offered enough money. So I could see this fight happening. I'm leaning against it, but I could see it happening. Okay, number 8, Mikey Garcia. Mikey's not going to take a risk against Crawford. He would get his ass whipped. I think he knows that. I think he wants to get this fight in with Jesse Vargas, which is a risk enough, and then face off against one of the big dogs in the PBC next, or somebody very beatable to him that a lot of people would believe he could beat. I just don't think it's going to be Crawford next. I don't think he's going to have that much balls to beat Crawford's next opponent. So I'm saying no to that. Number 9 is Sergey Lipinets, former 140-pound champion. This is another guy that is with the PBC, but I wouldn't be surprised if he had the balls to cross the street and face Crawford. I would love to see it. He's a guy that wants big fights. He's been in a ring with Mikey Garcia. Last year he came in and upset Lamont Peterson and knocked him out. It was a great fight. I wouldn't be surprised if Lipinets went after Crawford. I think that'd be a really good fight too. But I'm leaning against it because he's another PBC guy. Number 10 now. We look at 10, 11, and 12. You got number 10. Not 10, 11, 12. The three-way tie for 10th. You got Jesse Vargas, former world champion. He's fighting Mikey Garcia at the end of March. If he were to upset Mikey and a rematch wasn't on the table, I could see him facing Crawford, and I think Crawford would be down to face him. I think Jesse would come over to ESPN. Jesse's a very workable guy. He's very workable. He wants those big fights. He's not afraid to fight anybody. I love his attitude, and I would definitely love to see Jesse Vargas and Crawford. If Vargas were to beat Mikey, or even if he lost a close one to Mikey, I think Crawford would be like, hey, bring him over here. I'll fight him. And I don't see Mikey blowing Jesse Vargas out of the water. So this could be a possible option if Crawford's willing to wait till like May or June to face a guy like Jesse Vargas, which I think he would if it made sense for him. So we'll see. Thomas Delorme, Crawford fought Delorme back in the day at 140, whipped his ass. This fight wouldn't make any sense, and he's looking for bigger options in his next one. And then Josecito Lopez, I'm sure Crawford would fight him, given the way he looked against Thurman last year and beating John Molina Jr. I'm sure Crawford would fight him. Is his PBC working with ESPN? I don't think Josecito Lopez would be completely against it. I think he'd go after a world title if it was on the table. He'd probably make a lot of money. But I lean against any fight that sees the PBC and Crawford working together. Now, we're done with the top 10. I personally think it's still a struggle for Crawford to get a fight. But Bob Arum did come out, and both sides have agreed that they're willing to work together because they're making the fight with Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury. They're actually making it a 2-fight deal from what everybody's saying. And I think they're willing to work together more now. And Bob Arum said, you know, there's a time where they wouldn't, and now he's willing to work with them. And no matter how much shit he talks about people, Bob Arum has opened up the door and is more willing to work with whoever. So I really could see Bob Arum getting a big fight for Terence Crawford if it made sense. And it should, because a lot of money can be made. You know, Bob Arum offered, he's got a lot of money to spend. He offered, and Crawford's a big name, and he offered Danny Garcia $5 million to come over and fight. I mean, that's not chump change, guys. And it's probably even more now. He probably would offer more. So, I mean, guys, you really, I mean, there's nothing really we can do but wait and hope. But I really think it's possible and likely we're going to see Crawford in the ring with one of these PBC guys this year. And I'm hoping it happens next. I'm hoping it's not a slow roll, because Crawford is currently in his voluntary defense. He can face whoever he wants right now, so he doesn't have to make a mandatory. And I'm really hoping he gets somebody good in his next fight. And I'm hoping it's Sean Porter out the gate, but we'll see what happens. All right, guys, that's it. That's the what's next on the undefeated WBO welterweight champion and pound for pound, you know, pound for pound guy threatening for the top spot, Terence Crawford. True Boxing, you've been hit with the truth.